Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Be a Better You podcast. I am your host and subconscious reprogramming coach, Allison K. Dagney. So, today we're going to talk about the hidden side of codependency. Everybody's probably heard of codependency, understands what codependent behavior is, but I want to talk about something a little different, which is self-denial and martyrdom. And I think this is important to talk about because this is an often overlooked aspect of codependency, where most people think of codependency as someone who's like maybe unable to set boundaries, which we talked about last week, maybe feel responsible for other people's emotions, low self-esteem, low self-worth, maybe feeling the need to control or fix other people, those kinds of things, right? So I want to talk about this idea that denying of the self and martyrdom can be something that really, really holds you back in your healing journey. A lot of times if we're focusing on like our codependent behaviors and fixing them, this is something we often don't look at. And so I really think that by me talking about this, I can give you some fresh insights with some actionable strategies if you notice this in yourself. Why I'm here every week on this podcast is to give you insight, revelation, tools, tips, and techniques to be the best version of you that you can. I truly believe that my purpose on this planet is to help people understand who they are on a deep soul level and begin to love themselves. I experienced this in my life, and I hope that everyone can get here as well someday. So let's talk about codependency first, because maybe you aren't totally familiar with it, but codependency is a behavioral and emotional condition where people prioritize other people's needs and feelings over their own, right? So this idea of self-denial is in that vein, right? But I think it goes a little bit deeper, and that's what I want to talk about today, because this often leads to personal problems, emotional issues, trauma, exhaustion, things like that. So some of the other things that might present when it comes to, if you're like thinking if you might be codependent, would be if you do have difficulty setting boundaries, if you have people-pleasing behaviors, if you say, oh, I'm a people pleaser, maybe being over-involved in other people's lives, trying to do things for people without even being asked, trying to help all the time, low self-esteem, right? That is like trying to seek validation from other people. Like if you're doing things because you're wanting validation or people to thank you or love you or affirm you or validate you or like you or whatever, right? Those are kinds of codependent behaviors. The thing that I want to mention here is that self-denial, right? When you're denying yourself, this operates within codependency as a sort of reversal of energy. And what I mean by this is that there's a tendency for people who identify with this codependent behavior to neglect their own needs, to neglect their own desires, their own well-being in favor of trying to meet other people's needs. So think of it like this. Imagine that your energy is like a bank account, right? And typically in codependency, you might find yourself constantly giving to other people, emotionally, physically, maybe financially, right? And you're not expecting much in return. You're just giving, right? That's the codependent behavior, which often people do for, if you are in a codependent state, to get that validation, to feel better about yourself, to, receive some sort of affirmation, right? But what happens is this really leads to exhaustion, feelings of like emotionally drained. And really what that's like is like spending more money than you earn, right? If we're thinking of energy like a bank account. Now, self-denial takes this one more step further, right? It's not just about giving, it's about actively denying your own needs, your own desires, and your own well-being, right, for other people. So it's like consistently withdrawing money out of your bank account and never depositing anything back. And so, you know what happens when that happens? Then you create a deficit, you're in the red, and your energy reserves are basically none, and you are feeling totally depleted, and there's undervalue there, right? Because there's no value in that. So the difference, or the contrast here is in a healthy relationship, right, where there's mutual exchange of care and support, right? Self-denial involves a one-sided flow, right, of energy out that often goes unnoticed. And it's about you prioritizing everybody else's needs over your own, which then ultimately negatively impacts your emotional and mental health. So that's what I'm talking about when I say it's a reversal of energy, right? Thinking of it like in terms of that bank account, because it highlights the difference between simply caring for other people and then actually denying or neglecting you. So it's really about finding a balance where you can give to others from a place of abundance rather than depletion or a desire to get something out of it, right? So this awareness is really the first step in trying to reclaim your energy and restore that balance and that harmony in your relationships. Another way you can look at this is like a simple way you can look at this is like if you had if you're pouring into someone else's bucket, but it's leaking, right? Like it's not going to ever fill up, and you're going to be just consistently going back and trying to fill that bucket up and giving to someone else without ever taking a drink of water for yourself, right? So that again just leads to more and more emotional depletion and exhaustion. Now, why is this so important? The reason why I'm even talking about this is because if you've been emotionally abused for any part of your life, as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult, as a later in life adult, you are going to always be in relationships with someone, right? You're going to have work relationships, you're going to have romantic relationships, you're going to have friend relationships and family, right? But all of those relationships need to be healthy, and they need to thrive on respect, reciprocity, where everybody is being fair and collaborating and loving and kind, reciprocal, back and forth, right? It's not just one-sided. So codependency is often, that self-sacrificing kind of behavior, but or like putting yourself last in place of other people. But this whole self-denying thing is what I really think is important to understand, is that if you are giving to other people because you are denying yourself, you should ask yourself why. What do you gain from denying yourself? What do you get from going out and putting everyone else before you? What do you get from that? And, I'm going to say this really gently, but if you're saying like, oh, I don't get anything from it, like I just do it because I'm a nice person, like I get that. There are very nice people out there. I'm not denying that at all, right? I feel like I'm a very nice person too, and I'd like to do nice things for people. However, if it's at the expense of you in any tiny little percentage, you have to ask yourself why that is. Where are you leading from? Are you leading from joy? Are you leading from abundance? Are you leading from gratitude? Where are you leading from? Are you leading from a place of need or a place of lack when you do that? Now, this leads me into the next thing, which is martyrdom. And martyrdom and the self-denial are very low frequency vibrations. And what we should be doing in this world is trying to raise our vibrations to the highest level so that the entire collective of humanity can be better off, right? These low vibrational types of emotions are what keep people stuck. So martyrdom, if you're not familiar, you've heard of what a martyr is, right? But in the context of codependency is a pattern where people sacrifice their own needs, their own happiness, their own wants and desires for other people, and often end up seeking validation for that or seeking recognition for that. So martyrdom really just perpetuates a very low frequency vibration, because ultimately, when you are in that state of martyrdom, you are feeling, again, depleted, disconnected, and possibly even like zombie-like in your interactions with other people, because you're constantly playing the role of sacrificing for other people. Now, again, martyrdom is like this self-denial, right? It does seek recognition, though, so there is an element of self there. Because if you are constantly doing things for other people to build yourself up as this self-sacrificing person for everyone else, you would want to ask yourself why that is. Again, there comes the question, why am I doing this? And your first inkling might be, well, because I need to help people. So I'm going to sacrifice what I really want or what I really need for my family, for my friends, for my children, for my coworkers or whatever, right? But what do you get from that, right? What are you getting? What is the gain, right? Because you're like, I'm not getting anything because I'm sacrificing my time, or I'm sacrificing what I really want. I'm not getting anything from it. But I'd ask you to look a little bit deeper, because often there is something that you are gaining from being in that martyrdom, right? And sometimes it's, I get to feel like the good guy, or if I make these sacrifices for everyone else, then they'll think I'm a good person. But the problem with doing this, especially continually, is that it actually contributes to a lack of self-love and ends up keeping you in the shadows, where you're unable to really take in the light of self-love and personal growth. So think of it like a dimly lit room, right? If you're in that martyrdom state, constantly sacrificing all the things that you really want and deserve and need for everybody else, for whatever reason that is, and everybody's going to have a different reason, right? But that's going to keep you in the shadows, right? You're not going to ever be able to step into the light there. And again, like I said, this keeps this low frequency vibration when this is a pattern of behavior that is in this vein of codependency. So I really think that exploring how self-denial and martyrdom could contribute to feelings of low self-worth, or feelings like you might not be good enough, or whatever those things might be. If you take a look at that stuff, it can really help you raise your vibration and step into the light and be able to grow. If you don't have a really strong connection with yourself, right, where you truly love yourself and know what you're worth, you're not expressing codependent behaviors, you're not doing martyrdom, you're not denying yourself, you're not self-sacrificing, right? If you have a heartfelt connection with yourself, you are going to feel really, really good in your body, in your skin, in your emotions. You're going to feel really good. So it's when people fail to recognize and nurture their own worth that they fall into these kinds of patterns like martyrdom and self-denial, self-sacrifice, and codependency. And worse is if you don't acknowledge these things and you don't really embrace your true value and you don't accept yourself instead of deny yourself, and give to yourself instead of constantly sacrificing for yourself, or I guess sacrificing for others, sacrificing yourself, then you end up really unable to set healthy boundaries, and you're going to struggle with maintaining fulfilling relationships. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do things for other people, that we shouldn't be kind, that we shouldn't go out of our way to do something nice for someone. That's not at all what I'm saying. It's when we are truly in a state of denying who we are, betraying ourselves, saying my needs don't matter, this person needs help, so I'm just going to do it even though it's not really good for me. And you just like don't even recognize yourself in the picture at all. And again, like I said, most of the time when this happens, we're doing it because we're trying to get something. And this isn't in any way to judge anyone. It's just the way that our minds are, right? If I believe it's going to make me feel like a better person to self-sacrifice, then I'm going to do that, right? I know someone personally who struggled with addiction, drug addiction, severe drug addiction for a long time. And this person ended up going to jail. They hurt a lot of people along the way, just had a rough way to go. Finally got healthy, finally got clean, has been clean for maybe 20 years now. And I still know this person very, very well. And this person will literally do anything for anyone. If I ask this person to loan me $10,000, I would probably have it in my hand tomorrow. This person would seriously give you the shirt off their back. And I'm not saying it's not because they're a good person. It is. But the behavior of doing this helps this person emotionally because it's like an atonement for all the things that they did in the past. So it feels good to this person to continue to give and give and give in this way, almost like making up for the mistakes of the past, right? So people are doing what they're doing as adaptations to trauma, as coping strategies to deal with things, right? So there's no judgment here because I know how the brain works, and the brain is wired to help you feel safe and to protect you. So if that, in that situation that I just described, those kinds of behaviors fill up that person from where there might be lack, right? So there is self-sacrificing there. This person has a hard time telling people no. This person will go out of their way to do all these things for other people, right? Because it fills up that lack, okay? I'm not saying this is for everyone. I'm just using this as an example, right? It could be different for everybody in all different kinds of ways. I'm just giving you this so that you can be aware of it, that this is something that happens. And there's nothing wrong with you if you have martyrdom, if you have self-denying behaviors, if you are a codependent, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. If you want to change those behaviors, though, you have to start, one, acknowledging it, and two, figuring out the source, which is your subconscious mind and what you believe, right? Which I talk about every single time I get on. Now, here's something that you can do, right? Because let's just use that example of the person I just described who is constantly giving to everyone and is so kind and so generous. I don't know what this person believes on a subconscious level, but I could guess, right? I could guess it might be something like, I need to make up for my past. I'm never going to be forgiven unless I do good in the world. I don't deserve the life I have now because of what I did in my past, so I should pay it forward. Imagine if that person didn't have those kinds of beliefs, that person would be able to tell people no more, be able to hold boundaries, stop self-sacrificing so much, stop denying their own individuality, their own needs and wants and desires. So you see, it's not about just people behaving how they behave. There is an absolute reason we do what we do, and it's because of our programming. It's because of what we believe on a subconscious level. Now, if I had a conversation with this person and we're really getting into it and I was asking the right questions, I would find out the real reason that this person does have these self-sacrificing, martyrdom, codependent kinds of behaviors. And I would know why based on that conversation. So it's up to you to put this stuff on paper, to start actually thinking about it. Like the questions I asked before, why? Why do you do it? What is the reason that you're doing it? And be honest with yourself, right? No one's judging you. It's how your brain is wired. So you really have to be compassionate with yourself and true to yourself and take a heart-centered approach to how you move forward in life. Because without that, you are going to constantly be denying yourself, showing up with codependent behaviors, sacrificing yourself and your needs, right? And this isn't about being selfish and me, and none of that, right? But when we do not lead with authenticity and self-awareness and self-compassion and, really knowing why we do what we do, there might be other underlying unconscious, subconscious motives. And wouldn't you rather engage with the people you love and the people in your life as a real, authentic version of you and not someone who is behaving in a way that is for you to get something or for you to feel good about yourself? And again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't feel good about ourselves. I'm not saying we shouldn't get something. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to explain is that leading with the truth, leading with authenticity for why you do what you do is going to help you, one, heal, move forward, raise your level of consciousness and awareness, get out of that zombie type of state of mind where you're just, autopilot, really be aware of what's going on inside of you and foster and deepen relationships with the people in your life. So what are some action steps that you can take to identify and then address if you are doing these kinds of things, if you are denying yourself and you're in that martyrdom state? Number one, I really, really can't tell you how important it is to journal, to put your thoughts on paper, not in your notepad, not on your computer, with your pen to paper. And the reason why is because your brain thinks way faster than your hands can write, right? So it forces you to slow down as you're thinking the thoughts that are coming through your mind, which then helps you reflect and helps you see really what's happening on a deep subconscious level. It helps you explore your feelings, why you're motivated to do what you do, and bring those patterns of behavior to light, okay? So that's really important. If you are not in the practice of journaling, give it a try for a week. Just do it before you go to bed at night or when you wake up in the morning or when you're having your coffee, or just pick a day, a time that you can do it, and then just try to keep it up for a week and see what comes up. I would also suggest maybe getting some honest feedback from somebody who you trust. Maybe it's a therapist, maybe it's a coach, a friend, somebody who you really trust that's not going to be judgy of you, and get perspective on maybe some areas that you don't see, maybe some blind spots that you have or habits. I know that being in the relationship that I'm in since I got out of my emotionally abusive relationship has shined a light on a lot of things. And I know that if I had not been in this relationship, that there would be so many things I wouldn't have ever worked on because I wouldn't have been able to see them, right? So being in relationship with other people, they can help you and say, you know what, I have noticed this about you, or I have seen this behavior and I was curious why you did that. You're going to have to go in with, the understanding that it's not about criticism, it's about observation. Let's just use that word. It's about getting information. So if you go in that way, thinking, I'm just going to come in with information, I'm not going to get defensive, I'm not going to get my feelings hurt, I'm trying to learn like a scientist, observe and get information. It's going to be a little bit easier to do it that way. I'd also recommend any kind of mindfulness technique that you can do. We practice some of these things in my Radiate and Rise community, and we're going to be doing a lot more of that. But being mindful of the space that you're in, being in the present moment, thinking before you speak, right? There's lots of different ways that you can be mindful, okay? Doing self-inquiry exercises where you have questions. We also do this in my Radiate and Rise community, where you are answering different questions to help you get introspective and figure out what's going on inside your subconscious mind. This helps cultivate self-awareness and can help you really recognize in ways that you have been impacted negatively by denying yourself, by showing up in martyrdom and codependency, for your own personal growth where this may have been limiting you. Okay, now let's shift over really quick to something I think is really important. And this is a little bit on the woo side, but that's all right. I really think it's important to embrace your inner divine self, your higher self, right? And what I mean by this is to really connect with your inherent worth, to put it simply. And that's probably something more along the lines that you would recognize, is recognizing your worth. And the best description I can give you of like how you can see your worth, and I've done this before with lots of clients, is when they don't feel worthy and they don't feel good enough, I ask them, would you, let's say you found out on the news that a couple of women went missing in your community and there was a search to go find them. Would your first instinct be, well, are they worthy? Should I go look? Should I join this to try to help, or are they even worthy? There's 20 people on your front doorstep saying, can you come help? Is that your first question? Are they worthy? No. There are human beings who went missing, and you say, you know what? If I can help, I will help, right? You're not questioning if this person is worthy. You're saying, if I have the time, if I have the resources, if I have the emotional capacity or whatever, right, to do it. Your question isn't, are they worthy? Because everybody has inherent worth. So I'd like for you to think about that when it comes to you and your divine essence, your beauty in the soul of who you are, right? And there are ways that you can honor this part of you and nurture this part of you. And some of those ways would be engaging in spiritual practices, whether you are religious or spiritual or whatever that might be, right? Whether that's just meditating, whether it is doing things that bring you grounding, like spending time in nature and just being in awe of the beauty, right? Those are spiritual practices, right? You can do other kinds of things, like go to church and go to communion, and things like that are also practices, right? Whatever resonates with you to bring you closer to your divine essence and who you are and your worth. The other thing might be to explore creative expressions, like hobbies or things that you really find joy in that connect you to yourself, right? So if you like to do art, if you enjoy creating things, puzzles, other hobbies, anything that really can bring you joy will help you foster emotional healing. And it will help you to connect with yourself. So just as a recap here, right? The key things that I'd really like for you to walk away with from this episode have to do with exploring self-denial and martyrdom within codependency, as these are this hidden side, right? Because we all know these normal, oh, I'm a people pleaser, that sort of thing, right? This just takes it a little bit deeper to a side that sometimes people don't really want to look at, but I think it's important to look at if we want to be the best versions of ourselves that we can. Being the best version of you means that you are part of a puzzle that is only your part, right? But if your edges don't fit, if things aren't, the image doesn't fit right, the whole picture can't come together, right? So you're just doing your part. You're just putting your piece of the puzzle in. But you got to do the self-exploration and the discovery to make yourself rise up and be the best version of you that you can. So I'd really encourage you to think about this and maybe go back and listen to it a second time if you're oh, I don't really know about that. Do the things that I suggested, like journaling or reconnecting with your inner worth and your divinity with spiritual practices or things like that, because it's really going to help you create better relationships with you, that can help you then create better relationships with other people around you. Because we know healthy relationships aren't about martyrdom and self-denial. They're about reciprocation and, making sure there's a really good balance between everybody in the relationship. So I'd encourage you to, take steps towards recognizing this and then transforming that into, from self-denial to self-acceptance and self-love. You have a place in my community in Radiate and Rise where we talk about this kind of stuff, where we will learn about it, where we will take action steps towards healing and being the best versions of ourselves that we can together. And as a reminder, you can get into the community for $22 a month. It is completely anonymous if you want it to be. You can change your name. You don't have to put a picture of yourself up. It's not in Facebook. And you're going to get 1 hour of coaching with me in this group every month. I know some people have expressed, they weren't sure if they were going to be able to make it at the time that I would have it. So I also reserve the right to change the time based on the majority. So if most people are saying, oh, that time doesn't actually work for me, maybe, Saturday mornings is a better time, and then we switch it that month. So there's always going to be audio recordings so that you can come back and listen. I'm not going to do any face recordings, one for my own protection, but also for other people in the group if they want to be on video, and I don't want to have those recorded, but I can record the audio in there. And so you would always have the opportunity to go back and listen. So if you're interested in joining this community for things like this, where we're going to be working on shifting our mindset and mindfulness practices and doing the deeper work that you're not just going to get in just some regular online Facebook group or community. We're doing healing work together. You can sign up for this in the show notes and the link below. But ultimately, let's explore this. Let's focus on some of these overlooked elements like self-denial and martyrdom instead of just kind of the overriding theme of codependency. And let's take some action and do some work and put some practice in and strategize to start cultivating healthier relationships with ourselves and all the people around us. All right, so I hope this has been helpful. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you have any questions, you know how to reach me. You can DM me on Instagram or Facebook, or email me at allison@whentearsleavescars.com. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll talk to you next week.